Askreddit, what is the wisest saying you've ever heard? It is easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled. There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, you can't get fooled again. Don't do heroin, you'd love it, and I never have. Thank you random bus stop guy. Obligatory mention of the Redditor who tried heroin to see what it was like and ended up literally ruining his life and actually died and had to be brought back at one point. Read Spontaneous's story here. Also, I've seen Trainspotting. While it's dark, comedic, and not necessarily 100% realistic, what happens to Tommy scares the shit out of me. If not a bunch of other things in that film. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their behavior. There was something I saw as a little kid that really shaped the way I saw the world after. I was visiting some relatives, and I was in the back of the car while we were driving home. Someone came close to hitting them and they were ticked. Swearing, complaining about what a jerk that guy was, all that. The usual. A little later, the driver made a mistake and nearly hit another car. It was an honest mistake, and they were honestly sorry. They were apologizing over and over even though the other person couldn't hear, making peace signs at the window in the hopes the other person might see. And it made me wonder. Was that other guy sorry too? Had he made a stupid but honest mistake, just like they had? I think of that a lot now. Is this other person a jerk, or could it be an honest mistake? Could they be having an awful day, could they be trying their best? The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. Similarly, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. I actually really like this. Learning from mistakes is one of the best ways to learn, no reason they have to be your own. Edit. Thanks for the silver kind stranger, my first. Glad you all like this little nugget of wisdom, I wish I could tell you where I heard it. Just one of those things, but I definitely enjoyed waking up to all the replies. A friend's version of this, life's too short to learn only from your own mistakes. Don't practice until you get it right, practice until you can't get it wrong. From Ranger's Apprentice? A ridiculous amount of people nostalgiaed on my comment, apparently smiley face. For those who don't know, John is still writing them. Part 13 and 14 have been released this year. Never do illegal shit while doing illegal shit. Only break one law at a time. If you raise your kids you can spoil your grandchildren, but if you spoil your kids you will have to raise your grandchildren. Edit. My first silver, thanks user. Edit 2. Whoa, 2 more silvers and a gold? Thanks again, seriously, I feel really happy, you really made my day happy crying face. If you call your grandma, Mom, and call your mom, Pam, you're going to jail, Chris Rock. It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That's not weakness, that's life. Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Edit. Holy fracking shit. I just did some work outside and now this post has 17.5k upvotes and 3 awards. Holy shit, that's surreal. And a sincere thank you to the 3 anonymous internet strangers for giving me my first ever awards. I don't think people appreciate just how many good quotes Star Trek has. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. MLK. Just because you can, doesn't mean you should, and just because it's comfortable, doesn't mean it's good. My ex-girlfriend and I have been continuing to have sex after our breakup, and we agreed that it's mostly because we are some of the only people we feel physically safe, comfortable with. It's been in the back of my mind for a while that it probably isn't a good idea, and I'm still not sure why it might not be a good idea. To worry is to pay a debt of misery that may never come due, accept inevitable outcomes, and do your best to change changeable outcomes to your liking. Worrying does nothing. Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do but doesn't get you anywhere. Measure twice, cut once. Could have used this earlier, I cut twice and it's still too short. Make time for planning. Wars are won in the general's tent. Tactics win battles, logistics win wars. Napoleon. Real wealth is never having to spend time with assholes. John Waters. God, I love him. We have two lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one. Confucius. The original YOLO. Follow your heart but take your brain with you. I like this one and feel like it accompanies, if you open your mind too much, your brain will fall out. Never play chess with a pigeon. It knocks all the pieces over, shits all over the board and walks around like it's one. Good thing to remember before you start an argument with someone. If you are arguing with a fool, make sure he isn't doing the same thing. If you never heal from what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. Also, two sick people does not make one healthy relationship. I've fallen into the "we're both so damaged, we're perfect for each other" trap more often than I'd like to admit. Hate is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. God on Futurama. Every attack. My top 5 favorite quotes: we suffer more from imagination than from reality. Seneca, it's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Just try to escape your own. Marcus Aurelius, if you have a problem that can be fixed, there is no use in worrying. If you have a problem that cannot be fixed, there is no use in worrying. Buddhist proverb, the world is a comedy to those that think, a tragedy to those that feel. Horace Walpole, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever read Marcus Aurelius' Book of Meditations? It's one of my favorite books of all time. Stoicism is a wonderful philosophy. Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for a late pizza. I always interpret it along the lines of be forgiving of people, but don't let them walk all over you. Come on. He couldn't find the address. Who lives at 122 and 1/8? If it smells everywhere you go, maybe it's you. My brother is a real estate guy. He takes all these business-related leadership development trainings, and one thing they taught him was, if everyone has a problem with Bob, Bob is the problem. This made me think of that. The true master is an eternal student. Anger gives motivation, without purpose master ye. You belong in a museum. Never blame on malice what can be adequately explained by stupidity. Or ignorance or clumsiness or similar. Hanlon's razor. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. A wise man speaks because he has something he must say. A fool speaks because he must say something. I don't know if it's always wise, but most of the time I think it is. Only look in another person's bowl to see if they have enough to eat. Similarly, you must only look down to someone if you're helping them up. Edit. I have trouble with words. If you buy cheap, you buy twice. My mom said this to me years ago in relation to clothing, shoes, goods for your home, etc., not including food. She wasn't saying that everything you buy needs to be expensive, but rather that if you buy something cheap of poor quality, you'll likely have to buy a similar item again due to it wearing out, breaking. Really stuck with me as I transitioned to adulthood. Edit. Corrected spelling of I. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50. But an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vimes always bought, and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. This was the Captain Samuel Vimes Boots theory of socio-economic unfairness. Terry Pratchett. People like people who like people. People watcher watching people watching people watchers watch people. You need the dark in order to show light. Bob Ross. There's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in. Leonard Cohen. You can tell the size of a man by the size of the thing that makes him mad. Adlai Stevenson. Maybe not the wisest saying, but one that has stuck with me. That's a great quote. Thanks for sharing it. This too is a good measure. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. All it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. And yet the road to hell is paved with good intentions. My grandpa used to say, extra little effort saves you from a world of trouble later on. Use some extra little effort to put things back in their place so you know exactly where to find them next time, so on. He's been gone for over a decade, but I still say these words to myself if I feel super lazy. Edit. Someone gave me this really fracking cool award, thank you. I don't know what it is or how to use it though, I'm not a very advanced Reddit user. So like, a stitch in time saves 9? You will always meet your destiny on the path you took trying to avoid it. Gotta love Kung Fu Panda. Wisdom is knowing you know nothing. That's us, dude. Getting old beats the alternative. Do not regret growing older. It is a privilege denied to many, my favorite take. Time you enjoyed wasting is not wasted time. This one really helps me. My GF broke up with me about a month ago and at first it felt like the past 3 years we were friends and in a relationship were just wasted time, but I realized that I had the time of my life, and that I am now a better person than I was before the relationship. Thank you for posting this great comment you, nigga_Steve_edit. His comment said, time you enjoyed wasting is not wasted time. People don't quit companies. They quit management. I own a company, now, but I've had horrible bosses before. I've heard it like, people don't quit their job, they quit their boss. Please subscribe. Multiple videos uploaded daily.